Hello, this is Ben Newhouse, and this is Debian versus OpenSUSE. So this is Debian versus OpenSUSE, two different Linux distributions. My table of contents. My abstract, I just put a few introductory things in there to kind of warm you up to the point of this presentation. So the purpose of this project is to compare and contrast Debian and OpenSUSE, which are two different distributions of Linux. I installed both distributions and used them to get some first-hand knowledge and just to play around with them, see how they feel, get some experience. So OpenSUSE, I did some research as well on top of the first-hand experience and found out that it's pretty wide open. You can do pretty much whatever you want, and it's got a community that supports it, and it's not the most popular, but it's also not unpopular or anything. And then a lot of software professionals use OpenSUSE, and Debian is almost like the baseline Linux distribution. It's the most vanilla. It is the most popular, and it also has the best versatility and reliability. So OpenSUSE is, in quotes, far more open than Fedora, Ubuntu, Debian, and many other distributions. It's not controlled by anyone, any companies, or any corporations like that. It's open and available to anyone. And going back on the community aspect of it, it says that if you do the work, you get the respect. Nobody tells you what to do. That's just kind of how the community is for OpenSUSE. You get credit for doing the work. Anyone can contribute and be involved. So this way, this is pretty similar to how all the distributions communities work, but this way that there a lot of people looking through using this software and programs. This way, there's more eyes, so everything is more improved and more people to catch bugs and things like that. So OpenSUSE also comes in two different versions, and they're called Tumbleweed and Leap. Tumbleweed is a rolling release, which means it's updated every time that new updates are created. Leap, on the other hand, it's also pretty much rolling release, but it doesn't completely update each time. It's like a fixed grouping of all the prior updates. It's basically like Tumbleweed the last year or two combined into one release. And that is released every 2 to 4 years, the updated version. And popular UIs are pretty much the same as every other Linux, GNOME, KDE. The goal of OpenSUSE is to provide rich features and a usable desktop while catering to software developers. Why should you use OpenSUSE? OpenSUSE is an easy-to-run distribution that will work on all desktop environments. It's always fast, firm, and smooth when you're using it. It's also user-friendly when you have to install it and open it and run it for the first time. The community is really good, as I stated previously, and the developers are also good, and it also has a program called Yast, which lets you alter your configuration settings. And this is a screenshot of OpenSUSE with the KDE environment. It's pretty basic. You can see how it can be feature rich and also have an easy to manage desktop. And right clicking that's what you bring up in this UI. So what the file systems look like, they're pretty much the same. They both use ext4. So yeah, Debian and OpenSUSE both use ext4. There's other file systems that you can use, but this is the particular one that comes pre-packaged with these Linux distributions. It's basically the same thing as ext3, just more expanded with a few more features and a little bit more power. since OpenSUSE is good for software developers and system administrators and just professionals in general, it has a ton of packages, especially for programming languages. And there's also a lot of free packages, which there's a lot of educational and scientific packages that are available for download, many with practical uses. There's chemistry apps even, astronomy, math languages. There's also security packages. There's just so many packages that you can download, and that is how OpenSUSE stays so feature rich and easy to use, because there's just so much versatility and so many options. You can make your computer be what you want it to be. And YaST can also interact with all of these as you download them. So yeah, YaST is a featured collection of tools for the configuration of the system. It's updated along with OpenSUSE. It's basically embedded as part of OpenSUSE at this point. It also includes package management. It lets you install software, delete software, configure your hardware, drivers, devices, network settings, server settings, things like that. This is what it looks like when you open it up while you're in OpenSUSE. And it's pretty simple, just like the rest of the distribution. You just type in what you're looking for and it pops up. You do what you need to do. So moving on to Debian. Debian is a distribution of Linux that uses the Linux kernel. It is the most popular distribution of Linux. Also one of the oldest. It's open and free to anyone. It also has a lot of packages just like OpenSUSE does. It's also very versatile and very usable. And GNOME and KDE are the most popular desktop environments. Why should you use Debian? Well, Debian is the most popular, so it's got something going right for it. Has a lot of packages, huge community, since it's also the most popular. The system is very adaptable. Just remember, it's like almost baseline Linux. Very vanilla. It's moldable to a user's needs. It can use different kernels as well as different architectures. It's extremely stable on account of its simplicity, and it's very fast when you're using it. It offers free versions of many brand name applications, like Microsoft Word has its own Debian-based word processing software. And this is a screenshot of Debian with the GNOME UI. And so it's still GNOME, but it's the Debian distribution. And for the features in Debian, there's lots of plugins and packages. There's plugins like AppArmor, like security packages. There's things like NFTables, which is a packet filtering package. It's like traffic analyzation. Mailman 3 that works with your email and does messages. Basic tools like these, pretty much any operating system needs, help developers and Linux users while they're using operating systems. And both distributions have lengthy and extensive troubleshooting guides online. You can also submit questions or anything to the community and collaborate. OpenSUSE has been known to have a few problems with their network sometimes while using it. And OpenSUSE Leap specifically has tools to help you find the bottleneck, which is the hardest part when tuning a system. While in the meantime, Debian is very stable and reliable, and it doesn't have as many performance issues. Remember, it's very stable. So some of the weaknesses or disadvantages of Debian are that the packages might be outdated or easy to break if there's a hacker looking to break into that. The hardware compatibility with the older kernels is not easy sometimes, but to give in with. older systems like that. Configuration can also be difficult sometimes. So with Debian, out of the box, it's usually completely stable and doesn't have any problems. But when you start adding a lot of things or having an exotic setup, it really starts to cause problems and causes the configuration to be harder than it already is sometimes. It makes it more difficult on you. So for the disadvantages of OpenSUSE is that it's an older distribution of Linux, so the older versions are pretty much cracked at this point. They're buggy sometimes. They also don't have the biggest community, so support for specific things can be pretty weak sometimes, and it can be too simple sometimes for advanced Linux users. And this is an advantage and a disadvantage, but it's very reliable on Yast. So if I had to pick one, I would pick Debian, just because I'm a new Linux user, and I would prefer it for its versatility and popularity. And it's also very stable, so there wouldn't be many problems, and it's a good one to use if you're learning. And OpenSUSE is also user-friendly, but it also caters to professionals, so I could see myself using that later after I learn more about Linux. So to summarize, this project was centered on comparing the two distributions, Debian and OpenSUSE. I wanted to know which one had what their strengths were, what their weaknesses were, and how they worked. Debian was described as the most common and the most popular for all Linux users, and OpenSUSE was described as multi-purpose and open, similar to Debian, but also geared towards developers.